Hey everyone. Today, if we were in class, hopefully between Friday and yesterday, you already did the results. And we talked about the first 3 questions already for the conclusion. You also have this document that gives you some keywords and sentence starters to kind of help you out with that. Do your results support or disprove the initial hypothesis? What patterns or relationships do you see in the data? For us, it would be more a relationship, like did whatever you change help or harm your plant growth? And how do your results relate to the information in your literature? A lot of people had questions on that. That is basically based on what you did your research on. Did the results match that? Did what you thought was going to happen? So today we would be working on the next 2 sections in class, which you should do at your Cyber Day. Recommendations. What are sources of error and basic inadequacies of technique? These are procedural errors. Some people planted their seeds too low. Some people realize that their heat is different on the weekends than it is during the week when they go away. Precision of lab instruments. That basically means like your ruler. Did you use the same ruler every time? Did you use a ruler with millimeter markings? Inaccurate, precision, or precise, and reliability. That those are kind of keywords that are judgments on you and how well you did, or you could assume how well your classmates did. This is where it's going to be tricky not to use I or we or anything like that. Possible sources of error include the following could have affected the data in order to reduce error, things like that. For B block, for D block, how you guys made your own mazes. Did you make it, was it sturdy? Excuse me. Did you make it sturdy? Did too much light get through? Did not enough light get through? What are the additional steps needed to research on the problem? Do you need to change the procedure? Do we have to have more data? I think every single class could say that they needed to have more data, especially with the lousy sprouting success that we had. What could have been done differently with the lab? Meaning doing a similar lab, but not necessarily just procedural error differences, but how could we have also done it? How did the lab demonstrate the scientific concept? How else could you demonstrate it? For A block, they were talking about music and vibrations. Maybe they could have actually used real vibrations. What could you test to further your understanding, or what other experiments could be done? As part of your research, you looked up people who did similar experiments, so you should have a good idea on that. If you don't have a good idea on that, then you might need to go back and do more research to answer this question. And as part of the recommendations paragraph, the final question, what improvements to your experimental design would you suggest for future study? Remember ambiguity we talked about when we wrote our first procedures about tying the shoes. Did you interpret something incorrectly? Did one of your classmates interpret something incorrectly? Could we have been less ambiguous for that? So that's the recommendations part. And then the real world application. How did your experiment solve the problem you addressed? Remember, our problem was how does blank affect blank? How do different plants, whatever, your problem is written in your experiment. So how did it either demonstrate it or did not demonstrate it. And that could easily have an explanation based on something up here, based on your recommendations. What are the implications of your project? How could it be applied? And how does this product help in the real world? Is this concept used in your daily life? Most of you probably don't plant random plants in different ways in your daily life, but there are people that do. All right. Ask me any questions you need to in the Google Sheet.